morning, I'm going to give you my take on a political squabble. Well, I don't know about squabble, not squabble. A political development in this period of intense political activity. Both major political parties are now knee-deep in campaign 2025. And they're going at it. We have three living former prime ministers in Jamaica today. Portia Simpson Miller, Bruce Golding, and P.J. Patterson. Am I forgetting anyone? No. Three former living prime ministers. Orrit, Bruce Golding, Percival Noel James Patterson, Portia Lucretia Simpson Miller. Of the three, P.J. Patterson served the longest in office, having won 3 consecutive general elections as president of the People's National Party. First doing so in March 1993, repeating in 1997, and for a third time in 2002, before he resigned of his own volition in 2006, after which Portia Simpson Miller replaced him, having won election as PNP president. P.J. Patterson has been the party leader with the only record of winning 3 consecutive general elections. He is unmatched on that metric. Unmatched. No other party leader can claim that political record. But winning general elections is not the same thing as governing. Not the same thing as being the best or the most effective prime minister. Quite a big difference. And you will appreciate winning elections, especially in our very competitive 2-party Westminster system, is an achievement not to be sneezed at, because the rough and tumble of Jamaican politics, yes, is such that you have to be good at it to pull off 3 consecutive general election victories. Having retired from politics, P.J. Patterson said on a number of occasions that he's retiring to the pavilion. To the pavilion. Using cricket, of course, to suggest that, listen, you go to the pavilion and you enjoy the cricket, you look on and you commiserate and you lament and you celebrate the game, the swings, the flows of the game, yeah? And he has been retired now for nearly 20 years. 2006. Now it's 2025. And he has been, like all former party leaders, been supportive of his party, his beloved PNP. There was a time when they called him Mr. PNP. Percival Noel James Patterson. And his record of service to the PNP is legendary. And in these past 19 years, he makes his occasional interventions on national issues, but largely staying clear of the political fray, the political arena. But that changed last week when PJ decided to come out of the pavilion and enter the political arena, to go back onto the political field. And he styled himself as the opening batsman now for Region 6 of the People's National Party organization. Region 6 is a critical region for the country's politics. It comprises the parishes of St. James, Hanover, Westmoreland, and St. Elizabeth, about 13, 15 seats in there. And that was where he cut his teeth as a practicing politician. He was born in Hanover, and he became Member of Parliament for what is now Eastern Westmoreland. It was formerly Southeast Westmoreland, where he reigned before he was cut down on the night of October 30, 1980 by a school teacher, a principal by the name of Euphemia Williams. But that was a night when just about anything orange was losing across Jamaica. And he was one of the big casualties of that night when Edward Seaga's Labour Party swept the elections, winning 57, almost 58% of the popular vote, 51 of the 60 seats in the parliament. And he went under. But he returned. He returned to become not only chairman of the People's National Party, but also president. So last week, P.J. Patterson decided that he was going to put on his political armor again. And by his own admission, he was now going to be the opening batsman and re-enter the political arena. And he re-entered loudly. He offered a scathing assessment of the Holness administration's stewardship of the country. He slammed the government's management of the island's road network, the health system, the economy, and what he described as the alarming levels of poverty in the country. And in some of the most strident comments against a sitting administration from a former prime minister, and especially this former prime minister, since he retired 19 years ago in 2006. And that has set off a whole lot of political commentaries, observations, whether I'm right or wrong, but it has done one thing. It has reopened and turned the spotlight on his time at the wicket, the longest serving prime minister, 14 continuous years. Because the way he came out and attacked the Holness administration and the management of the country, inevitably, people are now going to look at, how did he do? What was his time like at the wicket? But first, here's Ricardo Brooks' report on what the former Prime Minister said last week.
Percival Noel James Patterson was Jamaica's longest-serving Prime Minister. He served from 1992 to 2006. He's also the country's most successful political leader, winning an unprecedented 3 terms in government. With a general election looming, the former Prime Minister has decided to wade into the political arena.
I've been called from the pavilion and I'm pleased to come as an opening batsman to the series which is going to be held in Region 6.
By his assessment, Prime Minister Andrew Holness and his cabinet have done a poor job on several fronts. He started with the state of the nation's roads.
Not even before the days of asphalt, when it was Rockstone Road, have I seen the roads in Jamaica in such a state of dilapidation and disrepair.
The Holness government has defended its stewardship of the road network, pointing to the more than $45 billion in road repairs under the Reach and Spark programs. Patterson next turned his attention to healthcare. The former Prime Minister says the sector is bordering on complete failure. He took particular aim at the delays at the Cornwall Regional Hospital.
Starting with 1.2 billion and it is now 21.5 billion and mounting, and the hospital is still incomplete. Nowhere else in the world but Jamaica could you have a project like that and not even one head rule.
The former Prime Minister says the Holness administration's boasts of prosperity ring hollow.
Despite all the boast about prosperity and despite the economic indices, there are too many families which simply cannot make ends meet. There's a recent report that shows hunger and malnutrition in Jamaica are at an alarming levels.
Among the economic indices the former Prime Minister references are the lowest unemployment rate in history and the longest period of no new taxes being levied by an administration. Data available from the PIOJ indicate the highest poverty levels recorded in the last 3 decades were under the Patterson administration, when it stood at 21.6% in 1996. Patterson says the time has come for a new direction in the country.
We have to change course. We are moving in the wrong direction. The moral order is under siege and the social order in decay. We have to come to the rescue of Jamaica, land we love. Time to restore the precepts of transparency and accountability.
The former Prime Minister was speaking at a recent forum put on by the PMP Region 6. Ricardo Brooks for Nationwide News.
Thank you, Ricardo. So let's go to the break and come back. Very special role to play. The opening batsman is a leader of the team when it comes to chasing down the score or setting a winning score. But there's something else about the opening batsman. The opening batsman has to possess the technique, the skill to counter the fast bowling, the opening bowlers, the fast bowlers who are going to come at him or at her. Yes? Because the opening bowlers need to break through quickly, not to give you any opportunity to settle in. So Mr. Patterson has come out as the opening batsman, and I'm sure he knows what that means. He has now re-entered the political arena and opens himself to scrutiny and searching fast bowling that is going to come at him. And I would say to Mr. Patterson, why? After your record of 14 years, your record, your time at the wicket, when, as you heard in the report, poverty levels were at their highest in Jamaica, their highest in 1996 under your watch, talking about people not being able to to survive. What was his record? Under his watch, Jamaica lost its 40,000 Jamaican owned businesses. 40,000, more than 40,000 indigenous Jamaican businesses went under during Patterson's time. The banking and financial crisis that peaked in 1996. Yes? Remember now, he came to power in 1992. And in 1996, the banking crisis where banks went under, financial institutions went under, generally businesses went under. It became immortalized in the word FinSac. They were all FinSacked. Why? Because Patterson and his finance minister, Dr. Omar Davis, were engaged in what was a sustained period of high interest rates. The cost of money was such that if you had cash, you were king. You simply gave your money, lent your money, invested your money in government paper, and you went to Caymanas or Draxall to play golf. And you would be handsomely rewarded. But at what cost? The country suffered. Businesses were wiped out. The indigenous businesses were destroyed. People committed suicide. Inflation was rampant. Cost of living was rampant. Huh? Some people have not recovered. In fact, the figures are there. That episode alone cost the country 40% of its annual gross domestic product in one fell swoop. 40% of its GDP. The level of public debt in the country was averaging 130 to 145% of gross domestic product. In other words, the total value of what we were producing could not cover our debt. And what did that mean? It meant we could not invest in fighting crime. The security infrastructure of the country was underfunded. Education was underfunded. Mr. Patterson spoke about the health sector and the roads. Under his watch, we could not finance them because we were busy having to pay off debt. And it is those seeds of poor management, poor fiscal management, that have now grown to the point where we had to change course, certainly. And that's when we went to the IMF again as beggars. And Peter Phillips said, never again should I or should we have any minister of finance, yes, in our country, having to suffer the indignity that he had to suffer. Never again. Why? I'm going to read something from you, for you, from the IMF, about the period when Patterson presided over the economy. One of the most striking features of the Jamaican economy is a high public debt, which is a recurring theme of this paper. Jamaica has had very high public debt for a long time. Some progress in reducing the debt in the early 1990s was reversed by the banking crisis that ensued in 1996. That is a FinSac debacle. Following which the government absorbed an additional 40% of GDP in debt. Since then, Jamaica has been grappling with a legacy of public debt averaging between 130 and 145% of GDP. This debt has rendered the economy vulnerable to market sentiments and contributed to high and volatile inflation as well as low economic growth. The debt has so severely constrained the flexibility of macroeconomic policymaking and required the development of a sophisticated debt management strategy. You understand what that means? What they're saying? The debt had ballooned to the point where we could not take care of basics. Patterson's government could not find $45 billion to be fixing the roads he's now lamenting about. They couldn't find a tenth of that. You know, when I heard that PJ had said this, I said, no. PJ is usually a very cautious man. Why would he do this now? Why? Something has gone wrong? What is it? For him to come and expose himself like this? What is it? Surely something has gone wrong. That he would come and say this. So, this morning, Mr. Patterson cannot be afforded the luxury of rewriting history. He can't rewrite history, I'm sorry. That's not the era we're in now. Don't take my word for it. Just simply use Google and put in from 1993 to 2006 and ask for the data. Ask for the figures. Jamaica was a basket case of not only the Caribbean, but was one of those countries that was regarded as cannot be helped. That did not go down well, Mr. Patterson, to those of us who lived through that period. And I don't deal with crime yet. Crime surged under Patterson's 14 years. We lived through it. Talk about corruption and scandals. I tell my youngsters in the newsroom, Audley Shaw under Edward Seaga was busting a scandal once a week. They never won, despite a scandal a week. So, Mr. Patterson, go back to the pavilion and stay there. Stay there. Yeah? Because all you're doing is sending several people to the records and to look at your record. I said last night to my youngsters, Patterson will be credited for removing the violent, confrontational edge to the Jamaican political scene. And that's a fact. He's not a confrontationist. He was always seeking to build consensus. But I'll also say this. He was a master at patronage politics. Carstone calls it patron clientelism in the politics. He was not a conviction politician. Yes? Certain core ideas and beliefs, like a Michael Manley or a Eddie Seaga or a Bruce Golding, no. He was about winning elections and doing what was necessary to win elections. And that is why under his watch, Omar Davis could declare boldly in one of the most grotesque public statements made by a Jamaican politician that we knew that what we had to do was not the prudent thing to do, but we had an election to win. So I said, run with it. We must not go back there. We must not go back there. Time for the break.